was a cold, stormy night in Town City. The wind was rustling the trees and rattling the windows, and the rain was pettling down on the roofs and dripping down the gutters. Nevertheless, the six friends, Skallow, Joe, Robo, Majnik, Thomson and the Bodyguard, were enjoying a quiet night in together at Joe's place, watching an old scary movie as it was Halloween. It had been a good couple of months since Robo's kidnapping, their latest encounter with trouble, yet its effects were still fresh in all their minds. However, that was all about to change this very night. The film was scary. Skallow had Robo on his lap, but his constant, unpredictable movements caused Robo to leave and curl up in his box in the corner, thinking how ridiculous this all was. Joe and Thomson were on the couch together, huddled up as tightly as possible, since they were the youngest and most scared. Majnik, the oldest, wasn't scared at all. He could see how fake and cheesy it all was, but enjoyed himself nonetheless. And finally the Bodyguard, the muscle of this group. Like Majnik wasn't scared yet, still flinched at some of the more intense scenes. Their thrills were interrupted when Joe received an unexpected phone call. Majnik picked up the remote and paused the film and switched on the lights. "Just when we were getting to the good part," moaned Thomson. "It's silly anyway," mocked the Bodyguard. "It's not," returned Thomson. "Silly, yes, but entertaining," interrupted Major Nick. "I agree with Nick," added Skallow. While the others were debating about the film's entertainment value, Joe stepped into the corner and looked at the number of the caller. It wasn't one he recognised. Regardless, he decided to answer it anyway. "Hello, is this Joseph Carter I'm speaking with?" asked the voice on the other side of the call. The voice that spoke sounded very soothing, but also sounded very unnerving and threatening at the same time. It also sounded like whoever or whatever was speaking was in an extremely silent space, as you could hear a pin drop echo like a speeding train. The line on which this voice spoke sounded grainy and eerie, not helping to the unsettling nature of the whole situation. Nervous, Joe motioned to the others to join him. As they came, Joe put his index finger up to his lips, telling them to approach quietly. When they arrived, Joe held his phone out so all could hear, after which the same voice repeated its original question. "Hello, is this Joseph Carter I'm speaking with?" "Who is this?" asked Joe, trying to hide his fear. The voice just repeated, "Hello, is this Joseph Carter I'm speaking with?" Major Nick advised Joe to hang up, but he didn't and answered the voice's request, replying, "Yes, this is Joseph Carter you're speaking with." Immediately following this response, all the lights in the room and house flickered and exploded, with the bulb shards turning into green mist before hitting the floor. Every door and window and any other exit was sealed with a mysterious green concrete-like material, trapping them all in the house. The television also flickered, but did not explode like the light bulbs. Instead, it quickly switched off and on, changing from the film they were watching to a shadowy bust of a human-like figure. The shadowy figure caused the television to emit static, which increased when it opened its eyes, and when it opened its mouth, caused the static to increase to a deafening level. Its eyes were pure white, shining like beacons, and with no iris nor pupil to be seen. Its mouth was like a black hole, no teeth, tongue, or gums, nor anything except the deep dark abyss. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" Joe asked fearfully, wondering if the Wizard of Doom was involved, but couldn't be sure. It could however be something unrelated. The figure did not fulfill Joe's request. It just growled, getting louder and louder until it disappeared completely. Everything returned to its original state. Everyone looked at each other in shock, terror, and a pinch of disbelief. What was that? Where did it come from, and why us? They all rapidly asked each other. Suddenly a thought unexpectedly walloped Thomson on the back of the head, and he spoke. "It might be the Playwell Phantom." "Not that load of old rubbish again," mockingly retorted Major Nick and the Bodyguard. "It's not rubbish," argued Thomson. "Don't you remember Great-Granddad used to tell us the story every Halloween?" "Go ahead, tell the story," asked Skallow and Joe. "We haven't heard about this before. Who is the Playwell Phantom?" Thomson cleared his throat and began. "Back in the 1920s, 1925 to be exact, three individuals pioneered the first working televisions, although mechanical, different from the ones we enjoy today. They were the first steps in revolutionising our modern equivalents, which would start to take shape only a couple years later. The first of these came about in March by a man named Joanne Wobbler, the second in June by Theodore Bajor, and finally the third by Frederick Everett in October. All three of their systems used moving silhouettes to demonstrate them to the public, but more importantly to investors." He continued, "Our story here is focused on the third inventor, Frederick Everett. He was a mysterious man who lived in an old shack located in an unknown part of the Greenwood Forest. He never left his house or the greenwood forest and only visited Town City once a year. He was a cold and emotionless man who had no friends or known family. Everett, like mentioned before, was an inventor, however not a successful one. He spent all his days brainstorming, designing, building, and perfecting his creations, showing them to the public and investors alike, all returning with unflattering results. He continued, Everett was extremely interested in the idea of television and had been investigating it for some time, with this technology being around in its earliest form since the mid-19th century. His interest increased dramatically after hearing about Warbler's system and even more after Bajor's, causing him to spend every hour of the day working on his design, and by mid to late October had a prototype ready to present. Fortunately, Everett remembered his only relative, a wealthy businessman named Joseph Sharp, who lived in that large house at the end of this very street, Playwell Ave. So he packed all his plans, other relevant documents, and some personal belongings, and set out for Town City. Everett reached Town City and went to see his relative. The day he arrived was the 31st of October, Halloween. He continued, Everett joyfully proceeded to his relative's office building. Arriving, was led by his relative's secretary into his office, where Mr. Sharp asked Everett to show him what he had. Everett emptied out all his plans and other documents relating to his design. Mr. Sharp looked over them for a while and gave his conclusion. It wasn't good. Mr. Sharp wasn't impressed at all with what he saw, saying, It's too similar, nothing special, seen it before, and things such as those. Disheartened and angry, Everett stood up and loudly proclaimed, My ghost will haunt you for the rest of your days. My ghost will also haunt anyone named Joseph who lives on Playwell Avenue, until the television that will be in your house is destroyed. My ghost will call every year on this date till this requirement is completed. He continued, Mr. Sharp laughed and ordered security to remove Everett from the premises, then screwed up all his plans and documents and threw them into the fire. This was the last time anyone ever saw or heard from Everett, many believing he died that very day. Every Halloween following that year, Mr. Joseph Sharp was haunted by a ghost, many believing it to be the ghost of Frederick Everett, all the way up to Mr. Sharp's death. His house, Sharp Manor, has remained unoccupied to this very day, as many believed it to be haunted, but that wasn't the end of the story. Every Halloween since, anyone living on Playwell Ave named Joseph was haunted by this ghost every year to this very day. After Thomson finished his story, Joe exclaimed, Let's go quickly to that house and find and destroy that television now. Let us look at this logically, Majnik intervened. Why is the supposed phantom only showed up this year? Joe's lived here for years. Thomson replied, I forgot to mention Mr. Sharp was a young man, aged 20, and Everett's haunting would only begin when a Joseph on Playwell Ave turned that age and onward. You don't believe this, scoffed the bodyguard. He also said he would initiate it by calling on the telephone after acknowledging your name as Joseph, would appear on your television as a moving silhouette like the ones used in his system. And the other aspects like the lights and doors, I don't know, maybe it's only normal ghost procedure, Thomson responded. It all checks out, added Skallow. All that happened, right in front of your eyes. You've got to admit Thomson might be onto something. Majnik and the bodyguard were the only two not convinced that the Playwell Phantom was behind this. Yet after thinking and pondering what everyone had said, concluded that they were right, and asked, Now what? Go destroy that television set this very minute, cried Joe. All six went to Joe's garage to collect some equipment. Skallow a pickaxe, Joe a axe, Majnik a dead-blow hammer, Thomson a claw hammer, the bodyguard a sledgehammer, and finally Robo, only equipped with his wits. Each also equipped themselves with a work jumpsuit and gloves and boots, goggles, hard hat, backpacks, and a few other minor but potentially useful tools, all from their own collection, before confidently striding to Sharp Manor. Reaching Sharp Manor, they saw that it was in bad shape. All the greenery was overgrown, the gates and walls were falling apart, most of the windows, doors, and many tiles on the roof were either missing or broken, and the house itself was either covered in mould or dirt, and many bricks had disappeared. They approached the main gate, and the left gate was only hanging on by its bottom hinge. Unable to open it, Skallow took out his shears and cut it, and the others helped lower it carefully to the ground. Afterwards, the bodyguard and Thomson unsheathed their machetes and formed a path up to the front door, through the overgrown forest, with the others following behind. Emerging at the front door, they found it in decent shape and unexpectedly locked. "Why is it locked? I thought no one's lived here for decades," inquired Skallow. "I don't know," replied Thomson. "Maybe after Mr. Sharp passed, they locked it because of the legend." Major Nick then picked the lock, after which the door mysteriously opened on its own, with a loud creak that echoed throughout the whole house. "Spooky," murmured the bodyguard. The 5 miners Robo took out and flicked on their torches and slowly but surely entered the house. Before they went off exploring, Major Nick called everyone together and whispered, "I think we should split up." Joe interrupted, "I don't want to be in this house alone with that ghost after me." "He has a point," added the bodyguard. "I don't exactly want to be here alone either. This place gives me the creeps." Thomson and Skallow agreed with Joe and the bodyguard. Robo barked in agreement also. "Okay," submitted Major Nick, "but I don't think we should all go together," he continued. "We want to find this television as quickly as possible, so I think we should split up into 2 teams. Me, Thomson, the bodyguard to look on the left, and Skallow, Joe and Robo to search on the right. You're right, we don't want to be alone in this house." All agreed that this was the best plan of action. The house was symmetrically separated into 2 with a grand staircase in the middle. Each team searched the area allocated to them. After doing so, returned to the hallway. Nothing, each team stated. They then decided to search upstairs, each team searching on the right and the left like before. Like the first time, they returned to the top of the stairs and reported nothing. "Where is it?" Joe panicked. "We've searched everywhere and everything, still nothing, no television." "Keep calm, Joe, we will find it," reassured Skallow, gently placing his hand on Joe's shoulder. "What do you think, Major Nick? What next?" he continued. "I'm stuck," confessed Major Nick. "You're right, as far as I can tell. We have checked every conceivable spot and found a lot of stuff, but nothing being a television." Meanwhile, Robo had been conducting his own investigation as the others were discussing their upcoming move. He sniffed along the landing on the left beside the stairs and uncovered an entry point. He explored this and travelled upwards, eventually leading to flat ground. Robo then sat down and started barking. Robo's barking echoed down and was heard by Skallow, Joe, Major Nick, Thomson and the bodyguard, who were still considering their new plan. At first they were scared, thinking it was Everett's ghost. Also, after casting about their torches and not seeing Robo added to this. Troubled and angry, Skallow tried to charge for the sound, yet the bodyguard stopped him. "Let me go, I have to save Robo, he's got him," cried Skallow. "Breathe," said the bodyguard calmly. "We'll all go, nice and slow." However, following a second hearing, Thomson realized Robo had found something. "Robo's not in trouble, he stumbled upon a secret room." The 5 followed the sound and discovered a thin door, different from the interior doors in the rest of the house. "It's an attic," exclaimed Joe. "What do you make of this, Thomson?" asked Skallow. "I guess Sharp tried to stop the hauntings by hiding the television in the attic. When he died, whoever found his body or took care of his possessions after his death hid it there to do the same," Thomson explained. They all carefully and slowly climbed the narrow and tight staircase. The 5 emerged from the staircase and shone their torches around the room. Skallow sighted Robo sitting, wagging his tail and excitedly panting, and he knelt beside him, petting Robo's head. "Good boy, Robo," Skallow congratulated. The attic was dirty, dusty, and full of an unsettling, musty odour. It was also crammed full of old furniture, artwork, and other various objects, all completely or partially covered with sheets. Nonetheless, directly located in the centre of the room was the television set. The television set was unlike anything else. It was clean and glistened like sun rays on a lake. It was completely uncovered, not like the rest of the stuff in the attic. And finally, it did not smell odd. It smelt sweet and pleasant, all extremely weird and conspicuous. Everyone was surprised and a little afraid. "There it is," murmured the bodyguard. "Now what?" added Skallow. Clutching his axe in his hands, Joe cried out, "Smash it," as he charged forward towards it. While Joe approached the television, suddenly its switch dramatically flashed on, knocking Joe to the ground. The television then harshly screamed and rapidly flickered between several kinds of static, causing everyone to try to cover their eyes and ears. It also resulted in their torch bulbs and lenses to shatter in their hands. and all except Joe to be encased in a pillar of that same green concrete material used to seal all the openings in Joe's house before. In the midst of all this, the same shadowy figure from earlier appeared before them. It opened its eyes and mouth as wide as possible, producing an ear-piercing amount of static, and caused the whole manor to shake violently. Simultaneously, the ghostly silhouette repeatedly cried out, "Why did you deceive me, Joseph? Free me." Joe repeatedly yelled in reply as he moved slowly towards the figure, squinting and attempting to cover his eyes with his right elbow, and dragging his axe behind him. "I'm sorry, Everett. I will save you." When Joe had come as close as he needed to, he stopped and, struggling to lift his axe, said, "Rest easy, Mr. Everett," after which he had gained enough strength to swing the axe and pierce the screen, shattering it. In the wake of this, everything returned to normal. All the others were freed from their concrete cells and their torches were fully repaired, plus the manor became completely quiet. "It's over. Frederick Everett's ghost will not haunt Playable Avenue ever again," concluded Thomson. "Let us finish the job to make sure," panted Joe. After this, each took hold of their special tool and applied their goggles, then destroyed the television set, smashing it into a million pieces. The bodyguard pulled off the sheet protecting one of the armchairs stored in the attic, and with help from the others, filled the sheet with the remains of their victim, prior to transferring them outside. The bodyguard lifted the sheet and slung it over his shoulder. Thomson led the way, bringing them to the manor's backyard. There, amongst all the overgrown trees and bushes, was a freshly dug grave ready for burial, with shovel and headstone included. "That's unnerving," commented Skallow. "It's almost like Everett was expecting us to bury the television set pieces," joined Joe. "Let's finally finish the job," added Major Nick. "Joe should do it. I think Everett would want it that way," nominated the bodyguard, as he removed his load and placed it on the balcony. "I agree with the bodyguard," stated Thomson. "He wanted Joe to destroy the set, so we'd want him to bury it also." Joe reluctantly agreed as he picked up the sheet full of pieces and, carrying it in both hands, silently made his way to the hole, accompanied by the others following in the same silent manner. When they arrived, Joe lowered their makeshift coffin into the hole, as everyone else removed their hard hats, holding them at their chests as a sign of respect. After Joe had finished filling the hole with dirt, he stabbed the shovel into the ground beside it and joined them, placing his hard hat at his chest also. After the six had finished paying their respects, Thomson concluded the ceremony by declaring, "We not only confirmed the legend of the Playwheel Phantom, but ended it too." Following this, each placed their hard hats on their heads and returned home. Simultaneously, in a remote part of the Greenwood forest, on the ground surrounding an old dilapidated shack, was another freshly dug grave. Sauntering towards it was a shadowy figure with something wrapped in what appeared to be a sheet slumped over its left shoulder, and holding a shovel in its right hand. When it arrived at the grave, it bent over, angling its left shoulder to the ground, dropping its load into the hole. Then it filled the hole with dirt and engraved the headstone, loudly scratching the granite with its finger. Then it vanished into the night sky, disappearing in a mysterious mist. Inside the shack, the television instantly switched on after the figure disappeared, emitting a silent static, lighting the whole space. On the side table next to the couch, all alone, was a phone, ringing and ringing.